Here, right, we're saying, because we're comparing, right? Just like we've been learning about anyway. So we have two things that we're comparing, but we use the superlative to, right, basically put something at the very top of the category. We're not just looking at two things and comparing better, best, those kind of things, right? And so, yeah, so we would want to use, so then, right, we have most gentle versus gentlest. Okay. And of course, this would look in the comparative form, we'd say, and so the rule is, right, that basically, and sorry, I'm not being very linear in my thoughts here. So these two forms, comparative and superlative, are what we call okay, we call them comparative adjective forms. So all adjectives have the ability, right, to be used as either a superlative, right, saying it's absolutely number one, it's the GOAT, right, versus a comparative form, which is just saying among these two, right, you know, Wendy's or Burger King, you know, if that's your two topics, which is better, right, is our comparative. So we either create, right, this phrase, right, using most, which is an adverb describing the adjective, right? Here's our adjective gentle. Okay. Or for some adjectives, instead of saying most adjective, right, most ambiguous, um, we use the suffix est to make basically a superlative adjective, gentlest. Okay. And so as I think Garrett discovered through his resourcefulness, you know, he did learn that the comparative and superlative forms of the adjective gentle are going to be gentler, gentlest. Okay. Now, those words sound really funny to say. And even if
Yeah.
you, like I said, I think either kind of work here. And I think, well, I'm not sure how they would want to test you on that, but as far as like if you were you know, using this in like an English class, I think the teacher would mostly be forgiving. But the actual rule, technical rule in English is that so you guys can see it better. Is that how you spell syllable? It's not what I haven't written that word in a while, I guess. So one or two syllable adjectives. Excuse me. So the rule is that you look at the actual word, right? So our base adjective here is gentle, okay? And based on how many syllables, does anyone know what I mean when I say one or two syllables? Has anyone heard that word or remember it from a long time ago? It's okay if you don't, it's not super important. It's just how the rule works. So syllables have to do with how we say a word, okay, and how many kind of trying to think of how I would want to say this. So for example, right, if gentle is our word here, hopefully you would agree, gentle has two syllables, right? Gent and ul, right? And so syllables are kind of the spoken chunks of a word, okay? And of course, the longer the word, generally it has more syllables. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Let me just do what am I looking for? Ah, sorry. Ah. Hmm. Not sure who's hopping in.
Can I get the sign-in sheet so I can
Yeah,
sign
I'm
in?
just about to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, I always benefit from um, reminders. Okay, so back to our idea here. Okay, so gentle is two syllables. And so that's why we would say gentler and gentlest are like the proper ways. But sometimes, as I hopefully I'm seeing, um,
To me, it just sounded like a made up word.
yeah, and it's probably just because we don't use it very much. And like I said, I feel like for two syllable words, it's like kind of more on on like the um what do I want to say? More like on the border between you could probably use either form based based on how you would say it and what's going to flow and sound good. Because yeah, gentler. Can you be gentler? I mean, it does well, it's just right there, right? But so, for example, though, right, if you have a multi-syllabic word like beautiful, that's four syllables, right? So, right here, right, that's like I said, four syllables, and so we would most definitely say more, right? More beautiful versus what's really hard to say, beautifuler, right? Um, right? Or beautifulest. Which actress is the beautifulest currently? So hopefully you kind of understand the reason why this rule exists and we kind of can do these two forms is because if we only had those suffixes to add to the end of our adjectives to make them into superlative or comparative forms, um, we would have mouthfuls to say, right? So here, gentler would probably be correct. Oh, sorry, Kenneth. I had just pasted it in, I think, right before you guys joined, but thank you for reminding me. Um, so anyway, that's a very long lesson on that, but hopefully everyone feels like I said, I'm trying to remember if I've seen this rule on a GED question. Not sure, not coming to mind, but it's always good to know. And we've also seen some sentences, right, where we needed to use the superlative form instead of the comparative form. But here, right, we're saying Uncle Bert's dog is the goat, right, as far as gentle. Um, so good. Um, did everyone get this in their notes? Because I'm gonna just here, actually, maybe I can scooch it over here. I'm gonna scooch it over there for a sec. Let's see, where can I throw us? I'll throw us down there. Wow. Wow. Dope. Okay. So if I was gonna, is the and I don't think you have to say one, and I think you guys agreed. Yeah. I mean, most is the gentlest. I and you could say I have ever seen, although usually we would probably just something like that. Okay. But I like Lauren, I like how you also kind of reversed it. I think that was my Uncle Bert's. Like I said, I would just capitalize that there. Um, any other questions or thoughts about sentence one? No problem. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and clear my drawings. Did everyone get this crazy mini grammar lesson there? And you know, once again, most of us are native speakers of English, I'm assuming, and so you know, these rules are stuff that our brain just kind of in a way learn on their own. But yeah, Garrett, I would say gentle is one of those ones that but then just to contrast, right? If you had like a one syllable adjective, sorry, let me just finish my thought here. If you had a one syllable, like yeah, even the one syllables, right? Like more red. You know, is her face redder than mine or more red than mine? So I would say with the one and two syllable words, it's probably, yeah, like the rule is a little more interchangeable. But like we were saying, once you get over three syllables, then it becomes way too much of a mouthful to put the ER, the EST in. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. No worries, Kayla. I'll leave that up there. Um, hopefully you can see it okay. I'm gonna try to scroll down. Okay. And so our last sentence or our second sentence here is right here. And if you want to share your sentence in the chat, there's still time. Let's see. Here's one version. It's looking like that. All right. So once again, I like how Lauren kind of reorganized the phrases and put the if part here, which is good. And then, yeah, it looks like you caught most of it. Yep. So hopefully everyone knows, right, that officially in English, if we're going to kind of name a person and ourselves as the subject or the doer of the sentence, it's always that person and I. Okay. I feel like that's one of the corrections like I would get. I feel like maybe from my mom, but maybe from English teachers as well. But it's very common for us to say, right, that like, you know, Chris and me did this, or even me and my mom did this, right? So when we say it, when we're just speaking conversationally, generally we don't follow this rule. As someone who kind of is sad to see the rules go in a little, and again, I'm torn. Hopefully you can see that. But good. So hopefully everyone knows that idea, right? That we always want to, if it's someone and ourselves as the subject of the sentence, right? We want to put that person first and our name second. And I'm not quite sure why. I mean, it seems like a very nice gesture. I'm not sure if other languages do the same thing. And then hopefully everyone got here, right? even though we say, right, woulda, coulda, shoulda, right, we're not literally using that word of, right? We are basically contracting, right? Shaving off the beginning of the word have, and it comes off sounding like of, right? And so anytime you write would, should, could, of, it's always generally going to be have or has. And then here, did anyone do anything to shook? Would have shook? Shaken. Thank you, Anaretta. So similar to up here, right, seen versus saw, we have what we call irregular verbs in English, and these are the ones that don't really follow rules or patterns, and so you just kind of have to learn them. Although shake, right? Shake works like take, right? Shake, shook, shaken, take, took, taken. Make works differently, right? We have make, made, made. So, you know, shake and take, I guess, follow the same rule. And you can see why, because, right, they basically have kind of the, but good. Just like James Bond, right? We want shaken, not shook. And so, yeah, if you're going to have your have, you have to have your shaken. John and I would shake the rugs for them. Yeah, it really only works with this would have shaken. And this is what we call, I mean, we have, right? We have two helper verbs here, and then shake is our main verb. This is kind of what we call, well, it's just how we talk about, right? Imagined things or imagined situations. We have to use a lot of fancy verb forms here. And then here, if we'd, we would, we'd have been here. And then you would need something like that. If we'd have been there, or if we had been here. Yeah. That's what we're going to have to do there. So once again, you have to have that would have been. Okay. Would have shaken, would have been. And so here you can contract we would, but you need to add that have there. And then, of course, a period. Okay. So hopefully your sentence is looking something like this. And Lauren did a good job of demonstrating how if you move the if part of the sentence to the beginning, then you need to separate the two parts with a comma. But if you leave it in this order, the if is doing that connecting, and we don't need a comma. Okay. All right. Hopefully you guys got a good dose of grammar and stuff today. Are there any lingering questions or concerns about the two sentences that we worked on today? I know on last Wednesday, since we didn't have a regular class, we did a practice, just the reading part of a GED practice test. And I know we've kind of looked at how the GED is going to test us on this, but maybe on Wednesday we can look at it again. So cool. All right. Doesn't look like anyone has any thoughts or comments. So hopefully your sentences are looking like this, and you guys are seeing where some of your errors might be. Okay. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump back to our compare and contrast lesson. Now we had 2 more units that I prepared to kind of go along with this class. Sorry, thinking. But I wanted to maybe try and kind of wrap this up a little bit quickly today. And then at least we could start on the 5th unit, or yeah, 6th unit. Wow, we've done a lot, guys. Good job. So hopefully that feels good. Okay. So this is our compare and contrast unit. Does anyone need me to put the link to the materials in class, or is everyone hopefully either have your own copy or okay. You can also get it off of Canvas, but hopefully this feels good to everyone. Okay. And so we kind of, hopefully everyone's feeling really good about compare and contrast. And if you guys need me to go back and review, I can. But I want to start by looking at page 11. Okay. And remind me if we've already gone through this, but hopefully that's where we're at. But I know I was a little bit lost, so definitely let me know if I'm not. If we've already done this, okay. All right, so page 11 is where we begin to see how the GED exams are going to test our ability to, organize, compare, and contrast. Yeah, just a sec, Kayla. So here on our Canvas page, we have our and I'm not sure which campus you're closest to, Kayla, but you can go to either the CCC 4th Street campus or the Page campus, and they can, print a copy. Hopefully there's still paper copies, but like I said, if at 4th Street, if Linda is up front or Daniel or Donovan are available, they can definitely help get you the materials. And if you can get to Page, the kind of campus front desk person, Patrice, also can get you the print those out for you. So anyway, okay. Oops, did I put cause and effect in there? I feel like I did. I feel like I copied the wrong one, Kayla. Oh, I did. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, and sorry, actually sent you the newest one was the first link that I sent to everyone. The current one is actually the second link, but like I said, I think Linda can help you if you can open it on your screen, or even if you're in the computer lab, the IT guy might be able to help you print, because I think you should have enough pages in your CCC student account. But the other place to look is the red pockets that are outside of the main classroom doors. That's usually where I leave extra copies. And I have those pockets kind of labeled so that you hopefully should find it. Okay. All right. So here we are on page 11. So, like I said, so page 11 is where it kind of talks you through the thought process of applying compare and contrast under, text relationship understanding to how the GED is going to ask you to apply that knowledge and so forth. And so this is actually an example social studies test, but hopefully I've made it clear to everyone that compare and contrast is definitely a common text relationship that you're going to see across all the GED exams, not just language arts, but social studies and science will also have you doing compare and contrast. So once again, when you recognize that that's the kind of text that you have, it's very fair and logical to expect, right, that they're going to ask you to make those comparisons. Okay. And so, right away, hopefully you guys agree, when I just look at the text and it doesn't have a title, but right away I get, river, right? And, location of river and kind of the category, right? So we're clearly talking about the two longest rivers in the world. And probably then, as I kind of scan through the text, immediately I see, some comparison language and some contrast language. Okay. So I'm pretty sure that's what they're going to ask me to do. Okay. And so right away, as I look at my questions, what do the Amazon and Nile rivers have in common? Okay. The question's asking you to compare, and right here in common have alike, right? And so we just look for the part of the text that gives us that comparison similarity signal. And hopefully you agree that it's pretty easy to find the answer there. Okay. All right. Then you can see in the next question, now we need to figure out a contrasting point. And so once again, when you look at the way the answers are kind of created here, and this is one of the things as you kind of scan through the questions, you begin to kind of see that the information's packaged in almost the same exact way. Right. And so the details here are about the Amazon. So I know that one detail is going to be true of the Amazon and not true of the Nile. Right. And so contrast, right, identify a difference. Okay. And so as you can see here, some of the answers are going to contradict or basically not be true of the passage or switch the two topics details around, right? And sometimes it's just going to be inaccurate, which leaves us right with our answer D there. Okay. So hopefully that feels good to everyone, and hopefully you feel like you have a good handle on compare and contrast questions according to how the GED does them. Go ahead and just look at the two questions on the bottom of page 11, okay? And answer those two questions. When you have your answers, you can share them in the chat, okay? But once again, just practicing this, getting used to noticing how the questions are going to look, And all right, thank you, Kenneth. All right. Anyone else? I'll give you guys another 2 minutes, or has everyone got their answers to these two problems here? Okay. Hmm, okay. Okay. Getting some different answers. Thank you guys for sharing. I'll give you another minute just cause. Okay. All right. Thank you, Angel. Okay.
Yeah, the first one D, second one B.
Okay. Okay. All right. So if we look at number one, it looks like everyone's kind of either thinking C or D for number one. So number one, similar to the examples we just saw above, right? We have this idea of in common. Okay. And so what are the two things being compared in this passage? or what's being kind of made distinct? Good, Kayla, right? So we have this idea of minor versus adult students, okay? And so, this text is kind of interesting in that, right? It's more of like a work policy, right? Than like an informational text that's like telling us about a topic. But same thing applies here. And so, follow up for student injuries. So, we have this idea of here, right? About minor students and what you have to do. And then here, let's see. If Okay, so here's kind of our two situations. Okay, and so where do they connect? Well, you can kind of see it. Here's where, right, we see. And so why is answer C not what the policy says is the same between a minor versus an adult student? What's wrong with answer C? Why is D the correct answer?
That's because they both had that in common. Just summarizing and the follow up effort must be filed like a report summarization, and C is just for the minor, I believe.
Good. And so basically it's silly, right? That if you have an adult student, kind of like with you guys, right? Most of you guys, I'm not calling your mom to talk about, right? I'm not contacting an adult student's parents. I'm contacting the adult because they're an adult. And so good. And so here, all students, right, means both minor and adult students. And so, no, right, we would not contact an adult's parents. But obviously, and I'm sure if you guys have certain kinds of work experience, you do have to document, right? You do probably have to document anything like that by creating some kind of report. So good. All right. And then for number 2, it looks like people are saying B or D or C. So then how is it different for a minor? Okay. And then so do they have to speak directly? So no one chose A. B says they must speak to the parent rather than to the student. So B's sounding pretty good, but C says the student must follow up sooner. So is there anything in here about, it just says as soon as possible, but there's nothing saying like if it's a minor, you have like an hour or like a day, and for an adult, you have a week, which wouldn't really make sense because you probably want to follow up regardless of your student's age, hopefully. So does everyone see why C is maybe not the best answer? D, the instructor must file a more detailed follow-up report. No, there's nothing in there that says, right, that the actual information in the report's different. It's just who gets the information from the report. So I'm feeling B, right? You must contact, right, the students. Yeah. The student's parent or legal guardian. Okay. Whereas, of course, the adult, you follow up with the injured adult directly. Okay. So hopefully as we talk through it, you're kind of seeing if you didn't feel like you picked the best answers when you did it on your own. Are you not reading closely? Are you feeling like it's just kind of hard and new? But kind of, monitor that. Think about what's luring you to away from what might be the correct answer, and definitely let me know if I can help. But the most important thing here is to always figure out what are my two topics, and then trying to find that common area and the areas of contrast, but it's not easy. All right, so excuse me. So there's more practice questions and a little bit more helpful explanation for some of these on the following pages. But what I would encourage you to do is to work on those on your own, okay, outside of class. Just because, like I said, I don't want to spend a lot of in-class time on this, but I did want to make sure that you had lots and lots and lots and lots of practice, okay? On page 16 gives you another example of how a GED question might look. So instead of multiple choice questions, you might have to organize the information into, right, some kind of graphic organizer like a Venn diagram. And so hopefully everyone, when you kind of see the two circles overlapping like this, immediately thinking, comparing and contrasting, where are similarities, maybe good or bad, versus only good versus only bad. Okay. So, right, you would take these 8 items, right, and basically organize them into the Venn diagram. Okay. We kind of talked a little bit about this, but let's go ahead and move and look at page 19. Okay, and at the top of page 19 that you see right here, once again, we're going to kind of look at compare and contrast in a specific context. And so last Wednesday, when we did a practice test, right, we encountered some of these fiction style texts. I think I was calling it literature, but hopefully everyone knows, right, what we mean here. And so for the Language Arts GED test, you'll, excuse me, mostly have the informational text, which is mostly what we work on in class, because informational texts are just more prevalent, I guess we could say, right? More commonplace. All right. But there is about 30% of the text in the GED test are going to be these fiction literature. So it's either going to be part of either a novel or part of a short story. So you kind of get a snippet or just a scene from a story or a book. But compare and contrast is, like I said, it's everywhere. And so, of course, in our fiction, authors also use compare and contrast, right, to kind of paint certain pictures to help us describe and understand characters or locations. Okay. So compare and contrast in fiction, right? So compare and contrast is huge in stories. Okay. So, of course, the elements of compare and contrast don't change. We're going to have 2 or more elements. Okay. And once again, we could have an emphasis on similarities, an emphasis on differences, or an emphasis on both. Okay. And so, right. And of course, organizing by similarities and differences helps us kind of get some of the deeper meanings in the stories. Okay. In fiction, you're still going to see signal words. Okay. For compare and contrast. So those still are our signposts saying, hey, right, here's a similarity, or hey, here's a difference. Okay. but let's see how it looks in more of this fiction type context, okay? So at the bottom of page 19, okay, we have a text here. Okay, it's apparently Standing Here Ironing by Tilly Olson. And I think that says 1961. That might be an 8, but it doesn't matter. Okay. And so right away, we definitely can see that we've got 2 women, and we'll probably clearly see some contrasts, right? Oh, there are conflicts between the others 2, each one human, needing, demanding, hurting, taking, but only between Emily and Susan. No, Emily toward Susan, that corroding resentment. It seems so obvious on the surface, yet it is not obvious. Susan, the second child, Susan, golden and curly haired and chubby, quick and articulate and assured, everything in appearance and matter. Emily was not. Susan, able to resist Emily's precious things, losing or sometimes clumsily breaking them. Susan telling jokes and riddles to companies for applause, while Emily sat silent to say to me later, that was my riddle, mother. I told it to Susan. Susan, who, for all the 5 years difference in age, was just a year behind Emily in developing physically. I am glad that for that slow physical development that widened the distance between her and her contemporaries, though she suffered over it. She was too vulnerable for that terrible world of youthful competition, of preening and parading, of constant measuring of yourself against every other, of envy. Okay, so once again, which statement describes one way that they are the same? So hopefully you see, right? Is Susan this and Emily not this? Is Emily this and Susan not this? So there should only be one that's true of the passage. Did anyone able to guess the difference? D? Good. Yep, I agree. And I think, yeah, right? Because Susan is, if she's 5 years younger and almost physically the same, then we know that that's true of Emily. Good job, guys. And so once again, you could, right, create a Venn diagram if that helps. Okay. So fiction is going to be a little bit different, and hopefully you kind of get a taste for how it's different. But once again, the questions and the ideas and the connections should be still there, very similar. Okay. So I went ahead and added some of those fiction style questions. Does anyone have any questions or confusions over those? As much as I wish we could focus more on fiction and literature in this class, it's not as suited for our purposes as, which is why we generally don't. So quite a bit of practice there on the next couple of pages. So these pages are focusing on the fiction part of the compare and contrast, but you'll definitely still see that. Okay. So hopefully everyone feels good about that. And so once again, anything we don't work on in class, so pages 20 through 22, I would strongly encourage you to work on those on your own outside of class. The answers are on the last page of this lesson, and so you can always go check them. If you need more help understanding, you could definitely work with a tutor or, set up a coaching appointment so that, we can go through them a little bit more. But Like I said, I wanted to kind of expedite things. But like I said, please do that practice on your own. Okay. Because it looks like a lot of people would benefit from working through those pages independently. Okay. All right. So this is page 23, I believe. Okay. So the other specific use of compare and contrast, especially on the language test, or I always get derailed when that happens, is that sometimes you have, right, what we've seen so far in both our informational and fiction texts is, you know, comparing and contrasting happening within the ideas. Okay. Now, this last piece of compare and contrast that we'll need to work on is saying now we have two texts that now we want to compare and contrast the ideas. So now we have to kind of access the ideas and information, find those shared topics between the two texts, and find out what the authors, right, are kind of where they're overlapping or where they're providing contrasting information and why. Okay. Okay. So we might have to compare texts on similar topics. Okay. So context, the circumstances under which the writer is creating the text, can exert influence on how the writer presents a topic or subject to the audience. Okay. So context is a really important idea. I like this definition. It's hopefully something that you guys, I mean, once again, it's one of those things that we are always working with and dealing with, but maybe we don't um, we don't just sorry. I'm not giving you guys a lot of good context on context, but we're always looking at these circumstances, right? And hopefully I'm doing a good job of helping you know what to notice, right? And that's all in context. Okay. Okay. So now that we're going to compare text, we want to kind of zoom out and say, okay, even though these are kind of talking about the same thing, why is this one talking this way about it versus the other one talking another way about it? Okay. So the context may be personal. Okay. The context may be professional, or the context might be broader. Okay. And generally the texts that we're seeing kind of have more of a broad context. All right. So we've got two texts here. Okay. And so, all right. So what is, well, go ahead and start reading these two to yourself. And right, we're looking for similarities and differences. Okay. So right away, even in the titles here, right, I can begin to see some contrasts some comparisons, some similarities, and some differences in this information, right? They're both transcripts. They're both transcripts of a presidential inaugural address. However, right, one is John F. Kennedy's address from 1961, and the second one is President Lincoln, and it was his second inaugural address given almost 100 years before Kennedy in 1865. Okay. All right. So if we look at the actual, right, information in the texts, okay. Is anyone seeing any points of similarity between what Kennedy is saying and what Lincoln is saying? Anyone finding any points of similarity between the topics? I know that the language can be kind of a challenge, but you know, so I kind of see similarities between these two parts of the text, right? Kind of saying that we as Americans, yeah, and this was a really famous speech, right, from Kennedy. And so, yeah, we kind of get that idea of both, yeah, unity, good, and working together. Malice, do you know what malice is? Because here it's saying with malice toward none, with charity for all. So, does Kennedy talk about malice? Um, you know, um, so malice is generally like hatred or anger, but we do kind of see that, right? Charity, though, is more on kind of the side of love. And so, yeah, I think intention and wanting to do good things with a good positive attitude for sure. And definitely that idea of wanting like a lasting peace, right? Um, and definitely this idea of all nations and citizens of the world. So they're definitely thinking both kind of, within the country and wider humanity for sure. Um, sorry. Um, so yeah, let's see what the authors of the book want us to think. But hopefully you guys can see how you have to kind of do that work of connecting the ideas and the themes between the two texts. It's not easy, especially when you have, this example here. But right. So here, if you wrote that the topic for both texts is how the country needs to move forward, but the ways in which each author wants to move the country forward are affected by the events occurring in each historical period. Then you understand how context shape the way a writer presents a topic. The two passages above are similar. They share a goal to inspire the American people, but the historical context changes what each writer urges his audience to do. And so, yeah, I would definitely say context matters, but I would say all in all, still kind of on the same target. When we think about the historical context here, versus here, does anyone have a sense of what was going on when Kennedy became president and what was going on as Lincoln was reelected, especially in 1865? Does anyone know anything about what was going on historically in either of those two periods? It's okay if you don't. So 1865 is going to be the end of the Civil War. I think they were still fighting when Lincoln was reelected. But, once again, so he was saying here, right, malice toward none would be, right, the Southerners, the Confederates, right, fighting against the Union, right, the North. And so he was like, okay, we just fought this like bloody, horrible war, and we need to get back together, right? Whereas Kennedy, talking about 100 years later, 1961, I would say people were pretty optimistic. The 50s were, we're about 15 years away from World War II, but there's still, the threat of communism and the threat of, wars to come. I guess actually in the 50s, they would have been fighting in Korea. So I think, Kennedy's context is a lot more global and wanting to prevent, right, the spread of communism and to increase democracy, right, which hopefully would help the freedom of man that we see at the end of the text here. Okay. So yeah, I can see how the contexts are different, but definitely these texts don't give you that. And so I can hopefully everyone agrees that's why they're so similar, because they're definitely on the same topic. All right, so texts on similar topics may present the topics differently. Okay, here, right, our first example, we had two speeches, right? But let's look at this next one on page 24. The two passages below are business letters. The context for each is different, and the presentation of the topic is different. How do these letters differ in context and presentation? So go ahead and read the two texts on page 24. Whoa. Okay. And once again, compare and contrast them. How do they differ in context, and how do they differ in presentation? Okay. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to read those two letters. Hopefully you can kind of see where they start and stop. It's a little so first one's here. There. All right. Hopefully, you guys were able to read those. So we know that they're both business letters. What other similarities are there? Are there any other similarities besides the fact that they're just letters, business letters? Are the writers of the letters kind of in the same group, or are they just like super, super, super different?
It's definitely different.
Okay.
Just by the tone of it, I don't know. Just
Okay.
like one is
Which,
very upset, and the other is just like very cool, calm, collective.
okay. Are they both kind of reporting a problem? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we definitely have a difference in tone. One is a lot more kind of negative, like you were saying. Hopefully, everyone agrees that's the second one. So, yeah, we have kind of two users of products trying to give constructive feedback. One is constructive feedback. They seem to be very patient. And then, yeah, right, we can see in the second letter the person is clearly upset and clearly trying to kind of project that emotional tone, right? Especially because we get these very clear word choices, um, right? Complaining, a bad experience, right? It's missing things. You couldn't read, outrage, kind of threats, even, right? If you want our business again, piece of junk. So, and then even just the way they sign it, right? Frustratedly yours. So, yeah. Whereas, right, yeah, Dr. Williams seems a lot more wanting to be, right, constructive, saying, yeah, it seems like this is not good, but it's a new thing. So just, try to pay attention better and we'll keep working on it. Um, you know, here, irregularity is a very nice way of saying, problems, because I think it helps, us be clear that, maybe it's, from both sides, not trying to blame or accuse and saying this is an outright piece of junk that you designed here and sold. Please do this, note this, um, and I'm trying to make it clear, yes, much more polite, right? I understand. Yeah, good. So pretty strong contrast, but I think we can still see some connections, right? They're letters to companies about products or procedures, and they're letters providing feedback. But definitely done in two different ways. Good, right? And so good. Okay. So the
It was like
format,
one's optimistic and the other was pessimistic.
absolutely, absolutely. And who's gonna catch more with the honey or the vinegar? Hard to know. Um, Complaining does take a lot of energy. All right. So we've talked about how kind of context can be similar or different. So hopefully you guys are getting a good sense of when you see that there's two texts, you can pretty much expect that you're going to have to kind of go back between them both and compare and contrast and find those points of similarity and difference. And it might be that contextual idea of tone versus the ideas and information. Okay. So format is another way that things get kind of differentiated from. Okay, the last two examples we've looked at, right? They've been in the same format, but now we can look at how different formats also, right, highlight areas of similarity or differences. Okay, so format is the order in which a text is arranged or presented. Writers choose format such as an article or a speech that communicates the points best. Okay, sometimes, right, we might have a visual format like a chart, a graph, or a cartoon. Okay. And then sometimes, right, we might see a combination of formats, right? And so once again, you might have a text and a chart, a text and a diagram. And once again, you're going to need to see, why are we combining these two formats together? How does that enhance the overall quality and kinds of information we're being given and the connections we can make? Okay. So of course, to be able to compare and contrast formats, you first need to identify the formats. And so hopefully you're getting an idea. Articles, speeches, letters, charts, graphs, cartoons, okay? So you have to identify the type of format, okay? And then ask questions as you read each format that deals with the topic, okay? And so it's really the same thing. It's just, right, that instead of looking inside the text as ideas, we're looking at two texts and kind of, right, how do they look? How are they presenting the information, and how could that go together? Okay, so for here, okay, go ahead and look at these two passages below. Okay, identify the format and then compare and contrast. Okay, so, all right, so take a few minutes here. Oh, Smikeys. Sorry, guys. Time really crept up on me. Wow. Um, so hopefully you're getting a good sense of that as well. So pages 26 and 27 give you some more practice on comparing two texts or two text formats. And so, like I said, what I'd like you guys to do is work on those, on all of these GED practice questions that we didn't go through, and try them out, okay? And what I'd like to do is start unit 6, on cause and effect on Wednesday. So does that work for everyone?
Yes, it does.
Cool. Awesome. And yes, just what I can hang out for a second. So, so good work today, guys. Hopefully everyone saw on Canvas, as you know, we'll have this week and next week, and then after Thursday, we won't meet for classes until January. So all of those dates, I will work on that, Angel. And so yeah, I will send out a message when I get the new units printed out. Okay. So cool. Any other questions or concerns before we're done for today?
No, Julie, you guys have a good one.
All right,
Appreciate you.
thanks. Take care, Quinn. Z, did you have a question that you needed to hang out and ask me, or?
No.
Okay.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Hi, Julie.
What's up?
Oh, it's Desma. Hi.
Uh-huh, yeah.
I just wanted to see that if I could switch my classes to evenings instead of during the morning time,
Absolutely.
if that's
Yeah.
possible.
It is absolutely possible. Might be in slightly different places, but we are using the same materials. So
Okay. So how do I do that? Do I just go into the evening classes now, or?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
that's all you need to do. Yep.
Oh, okay.
So if
That's
you
all I
want to
wanted to know.
attend, yeah. Yep. You know, once you complete orientation, and even though we, you know, in goal setting, we ask you to, you know, kind of choose